I had so much fun revisiting the costumes of the Game of Thrones, The Purple Wedding, that I thought I would follow up with the costumes of the Red Wedding, featured in the episode The Reigns of Castamere, which aired 9 years ago. Can you believe it? It's not an Emmy Award-winning costume episode like The Lion and the Rose. It wasn't submitted to the Academy for consideration. That went to the Walk of Punishment, which lost out to the Borgias. But I still think there are some excellent costumes created by series costume designer Michele Clapton. So let's take a walk down memory lane and have a fresh look at the costumes as I rank them in order. Hopefully you won't get triggered revisiting this episode. And if you haven't seen Game of Thrones up to season 3, there will be spoilers. The color grading in this episode is a muddy brown, so at times it's hard to tell what is going on with the costumes, but I will do my best. Let's get to the list. Number 10, Talisa Stark. I have Talisa's costume at the bottom of the list because, while it's nothing remarkable costume-wise, it's still worth including because of the significance of the scene. It's a very simple dress made from slub silk with princess lines that laces up in the back. There is some fullness from the waist down to allow for a slightly protruding belly. The wardrobe team likely had multiple versions because of the stabbing scene and all of the blood. Talisa wears a plain antique satin neck shawl. She wore this throughout the series. Talisa doesn't wear any jewelry, which is typical for the Starks, with the exception of Catelyn Stark, who's wearing a wedding ring. But as an observation that I have is that no one at the Red Wedding is wearing any jewelry. Number 9, Joyeus Frey. Walder Frey's 15-year-old wife, Joyeus Frey, wears a cote heidi, a medieval garment worn by both men and women during the Middle Ages. While it's difficult to see in some pictures, her dress is made from an overdyed brocade, and there are decorative buttons on the front and fasteners on the side. All of Walder Frey's daughters wear variations of the cote heidi in an assortment of unflattering bottle green colors. The cut of the Frey dresses are also unbecoming as it emphasizes the tummy. Sought-after silhouettes throughout history emphasize the waist, bust, hips, and rear, but not the tummy. While Clapton hasn't mentioned this in interviews, it appears that she created this silhouette to make the Frey women look as unattractive as possible. Under the dress, Joyeus wears a linen shift drawn in at the neck typical of the Riverlands. Most of the Frey women also wear a T-shaped leather belt decorated with X's and O's belt mounts, the same one that Roose Bolton wears. Number 8, Lothar Frey. Lothar Frey's costume is such a weird thing to wear to a wedding because it's his armor of sorts. That's not to say that it's inappropriate for the occasion. We see many circumstances in the Game of Thrones show where characters are wearing armor for any given occasion. The Tarleys, for instance, wearing their armor at dinner. Tom Brooks, who plays Lothar in season 3, has such a unique look about him, but I couldn't find many good pictures of him in this costume. His outfit, however, is later repurposed in season 6 when he was recast with Daniel Tweet. I have mentioned this in another video, but as soon as I saw his costume, it brought to mind the witch scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, in particular his leather arming cap. He's wearing a quilted gambesson and skirts, typically worn by many of the armies in Westeros under their armor, and this is pretty close to those worn by the Boltons and the Starks. Over that, he has a leather vest and a hardened leather breastplate. I'm not a fan of leather armor, and this looks pretty useless as it just partially covers his chest, but I suppose that despite their father's cunning, the Frey brothers aren't exactly the sharpest knives in the drawer. Number 7, Black Walder. Black Walder, or Walder Rivers, wears a punched leather armor piece over his gambesson and a cape consisting of a leather yoke from which hangs cartridge pleats of rough cloth. Like his half-brother, he also wears a cloth coif and leather arming cap. In the Middle Ages, the arming cap was worn under the helmets of 12th century knights. Number 6, Roose Bolton. When I first examined this costume, I thought that it looked very much like the one that Roose wears to Sansa and Ramsay's wedding. But upon closer inspection, it appears as though there are only some elements remaining, specifically the brocade sleeves of his doublet. The undertunic appears to be a quilted gambeson with a leather vest worn on top. Now, I know that there is a big deal about Catelyn discovering that Roose is wearing mail under his doublet, but he is wearing a gorget or neck protection over his doublet, which should have been an instant giveaway that something was amiss. Number 5, Lord Walder Frey. Walder wears a quilted and studded jerkin and a warm velvet coat, a medieval outer garment. Walder has a few variations of this sleeveless coat. This one is trimmed with wide bands of embellished ribbon. In this shot, you can see that while Walder's costumes are broken down, they are very beautifully made. His jerkin is possibly a brigandine, a form of body armor worn for protection should it have come to that. The brigandine is a doublet-like jacket that is lined internally with small oblong steel plates riveted to the fabric. Some of the decorative studs have fallen away, showing that despite his wealth, this is a well-worn garment. The studs are similar to the ones worn on Joyeus's dress. Actor David Bradley must have been very hot wearing this costume because under the robe and the jerkin, he's also wearing a quilted gambeson jacket and skirts like his son's, a leather vest, trousers, a rough neck cravat, and ratty fingerless gloves. Number 4, Catelyn Stark. Catelyn wears this simple linen gown with an undertunic drawn in at the throat. This is another situation that unless you lighten the image, it looks nearly black when it's more of a blue. There were likely multiple costumes made because of the large amount of blood spray in the scene. She wears the embroidered neck double crescent with hanging ties that fasten with a silver Tully brooch. Catelyn Stark actor Michele Clapton held onto those ties during moments of stress. This image is a studio shot of the same costume by The Hollywood Reporter, although the shift is a darker color. As demonstrated, the gown reads more blue than black and has a subtle tone-on-tone motif. Catelyn previously wore this as an undergown earlier in Season 3. Number 3, Roslin Frey. Walder Frey's lovely daughter, Roslin, is dressed in a beautiful wedding gown, a pleasant surprise to Edmure, and a bit of comic relief for the episode. Roslin's bodice, train, and long-hanging sleeves are made from a green-gold brocade. Under the bodice, she is wearing a creamy silk undertunic, but instead of it being drawn at the throat like the Frey daughters, it is just above her bust, creating a beautiful neckline. The bodice is decorated with some gold baubles along the neckline and a large floral clasp. I've pondered this costume in its origins. There is a medieval silhouette, but it also harkens to the Regency era, with the bodice similar to a spencer, a crop jacket worn over a shift. The fabric of her veil is just gorgeous, and while it hides her face when she is presented to Edmure, who up until this point had no idea what his wife would look like in this arranged marriage, it's lined in a sheer fabric so that she can see through it. Edmure wraps her in a marriage cloak, a tradition in Westeros under the Faith of the Seven, where the groom wraps the bride to bring her under his protection. It doesn't appear that the cloak has the Tully sigil, which is traditional, but there are grapes and vines along the cloak border. Was Riverrun known as a wine region? I have to say that despite her pretty dress, I'm not crazy about her hair, but again, the Frey women or men aren't the most stylish lot. Number 2, Robb Stark. Robb Stark is dressed in Stark finery, a black tunic with brocade sleeves. The coordinating cape is made from a kind of wool boucle and has a sort of claw-like feature made from the same sleeve brocade with 2 silver Stark clasps holding the cape in place. The silver Stark direwolf cape closures are the standout feature. Theon's costume worn for Sansa's wedding is very similar to Robb's. Actor Sophie Turner confirmed the Easter egg, stating, "If anyone noticed, it was Robb Stark's costume, just FYI to make it a little more brutal." In Michele Clapton's book, Game of Thrones: The Costumes, there is a note beside Theon's picture that says his sleeve and his cloak are both made from brocade as an homage to Catelyn Stark. Clapton says, She is one of the only characters to wear brocade, which speaks to her highly sophisticated style. So it seems that Robb is wearing the brocade as an homage to Catelyn, and then in turn Theon is wearing the costume as an homage to Robb. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. Number 1, Edmure Tully. For me, Edmure's costume is the best of the lot. Dare I say that he's upstaging the bride. If you've seen my Game of Thrones videos, I tend to favor the men's looks. I thought this was one of Michele Clapton's strengths when it would be so easy to put all of your eggs into the pretty dresses basket. Tobias Menzies looks great in anything that he wears, and while Edmure is no Joffrey Baratheon, this is an elegant and understated look that captures the spirit of his character. Edmure is wearing a long line doublet, a common style for the wealthy lords in Westeros. However, the design is very unique to him. He wears a similar costume in the final season of Game of Thrones. The doublet is a gold brocade trimmed in leather with metal plates through which leather ties fasten the coat. The sleeves are elbow length, but they are slashed, revealing the contrasting undersleeves. It's hard to see in any of the scenes, but he's wearing trousers tucked into tall boots. But my favorite part of the costume is this interesting gold sash, possibly made from sari fabric that has been gathered to create this interesting texture. It's fastened at the front with 2 gold Tully clasps. Edmure finishes off the look with a stamped leather belt decorated with bronze belt mounts. Let me know what your favorite red wedding costume was. With House of the Dragon coming in August, stay tuned for more Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon content coming your way. In case you missed it, check out my purple wedding costumes video. Thank you for spending time with me. See you in the next video.